So now I want to talk to you of those who have the absolute trap door closed mind, steel door, will not open, cannot accept the idea that there may not be a God, and tell you that I understand why. And the reason I understand why is because of my journey. Forgive me if tears come to my eyes while I talk to you about this, but I truly understand. When you're in a society, and your society may be a society that is a Jewish society, a Mormon society, a Catholic society, or an Islamic society, and in your society, your mother and dad, your grandparents, all of your brothers and sisters, even your children and your grandchildren, are all deeply wrapped up in that society. And I would say that in my case, as with many folks of my age, my parents, uh, all of their friends, pretty much all of their loved ones except for me, all of their children, are wrapped up in that society of faith. Actually, the Assemblies of God, Christian faith. Now, many of my brothers and sisters are not Assemblies of God anymore, but they're still of that belief and of that faith. They still cling to that Christian religion. Pretty much fundamentalist Christians. To leave that society, to all of a sudden stand up and say, I don't agree with what my church is teaching, is it's devastating. It's to say, okay, I'm sacrificing the acceptance of my mother and dad, my brothers and sisters, my children, my grandchildren, all cousins and aunts and uncles. I'm sacrificing their assistance and their approval for a statement I believe. Believe me, this will make you think twice about standing up and saying, I disagree. I understand that. That is the reason that I've spent many years not believing in my heart and being able to tell some people, I don't believe there is a God. But I couldn't tell my family. And even if I met you on the street and thought perhaps that you were a Christian, I might say, praise the Lord, God bless you. Yet in my own heart and on my own mind, I didn't believe that there was a God. This is very troubling. This is a very difficult experience for any of you that might have gone through it. I liken it to the experience of an individual that may be a gay person or a lesbian person. It feels that her acceptance or his acceptance and his approval is based upon the idea of being heterosexual. To admit that they're not heterosexual, it's a threatening thing. It's a psychological war in our hearts and minds, and maybe the war is greater within us than it is without us. But it's nonetheless there. I had to take it in small steps, incremental steps. I would begin to post things on my Facebook page that would indicate that I didn't believe that there was a God. One of my brothers contacted me about it and asked me questions, and I I said, yes, it's true. I don't believe there's a God. And then slowly, all of my brothers and sisters, I think, probably became aware. Here recently, my mother, who is close to 84 years old, became very ill, and it became necessary. We realized that she needed full-time caregiving, and so my brothers and myself and my sisters, we said, okay, well, we'll take turns, and I'll be there, and I can be there a certain day, and I'll be there for this week, somebody else the next week, and so forth. I did not realize that I was setting myself up for an ambush, and I agreed to be there for, I think, about a 10-day, close to 2-week period. But it had been so many years since I'd been in that environment where all it was God, God, God. Trust God, trust God, trust God. And I found myself in that situation, and found myself in a situation where my mother said, we're not going to do what the doctor says. We're going to trust God. If she sees this, she'll deny that, but that is a fact. And it was more than I could handle. It was more than I could handle. Later, a few days later, she kind of backed down and said, well, okay, we'll go see the doctors. You know. But all along, she was struggling with this idea. What happened was the doctor said you need 24-hour medical care. 24 hours a day, you need medical care if your life is going to be much longer. She was in denial. Finally, after about 8 days, she saw something that I had posted on Facebook, and something about science, and I won't tell you everything about it, but she expressed disapproval, and I lost it. I couldn't contain it any longer. It was more than I could handle. And I got mad at her. And I said, I can't take this anymore. I'm not going to take it anymore. And in fact, I used some words that I'm not necessarily proud of, but I said, I'm not going to take this crap anymore, or shit, or whatever I said. She said, if you're going to talk like that, you can't stay in this house. I said, well, I'm ready to go. I don't want to be here anyway. So I left. Then I wrote her back later and I said, Mom, the whole problem is that for years I have not believed in the existence of God. Because of the fact that she had seen on a number of occasions things on my Facebook that she expressed disapproval to me about. I canceled our friendship on Facebook because I didn't want her to see those things anymore, and I didn't want to hear her disapproval anymore. And it breaks my heart to say that. I love her with all my heart, and I care about her. She's my mother. She's cared deeply, deeply for me. It's very tough, very, very difficult. But for me, there's a point in life where the truth is more important than anything. And if the whole world is to take me, as it says in the Bible, take me outside the gates and stone me to death, I can no longer cling to lies. I must confess the truth. I must say it's true. I do not believe in the existence of God. You can't prove that God exists, and the only place He does exist is in our imagination. Now we use a nice word that is kind of convincing. We transfer the word our imagination to the spiritual world. The spiritual world is just the world of imagination. We can have all kinds of things that live there, like witches and people that do magic, and Superman, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Spider-Man, all the superheroes, Star Trek. I love Star Trek, by the way. Star Wars. But the spiritual world, in fact, is the world of imagination. Imagination is not a bad thing as long as we are able to hang on to reality and realize that imagination is imagination. Imagination and real life are not the same thing. They're two different things. Science, unlike religion, is constantly at war with itself. It's a tough thing to be a theoretical science, because as soon as you put out a theory, you are going to be attacked by other scientists. And they're going to tell you your theory can't be correct, and they're going to tell you why it can't be correct, and you're going to have to defend it. That's why we spent 100 years trying to prove that this idea that man came about through evolution, we've tried everything we can to prove that it's wrong. And we continue to do so. Einstein's theory of relativity is challenged and challenged and challenged and challenged. People continue to challenge it. And the only reason that it is so famous and so renowned is because it hasn't been disproven. On the other hand, you may not be able to disprove the idea of God, but it's never been proven. And it never will. Why? Because we know that God is from the world of imagination. He's not from the real world that we live in. You can't go beyond the moon or beyond Jupiter or beyond Mars and find God. You cannot go to the center of the Milky Way and find God. You cannot go beyond the boundaries of the Milky Way to other solar systems and other universes and find God. He's not out there. He is in the world of imagination. Is imagination a good thing? Yes. You know how you get to be a better person? Get to be a better person like playing like a better person. You imagine yourself as a better person, and you get to be a better person. But even when you're playing like you're a better person, there may be things that happen in life that cause you perhaps to lose your temper or to become emotionally unglued. And you may look back and say, how could that have happened? Guess what? You're human. You're not God. You're not perfect. Thank you so very much for listening to my video.